was running through a bunch of charts, mostly, silver and silver stocks. And I was like, holy crap, we may have liftoff in silver. And, silver is now back above the 200-day moving average again. It popped above it. And then today, obviously, it leaped over the 200-day moving average. So, I mean, if it holds at this level, even if it goes sideways for a while, we're going higher. And another interesting thing that I've noticed, my whole thesis this year, because, to explain why I think gold and silver aren't performing well or hadn't been performing well, is that the hedge funds were shorting gold and silver futures along with S&P 500 futures as the market was heading lower, right? And so, there was a tight correlation, especially starting in April, because remember, if you think back to the mid to late spring, it was felt like the sky was falling in the sector. Well, the sky was falling in the paper version of the sector, and the sky was falling in the stock market. But the chart itself shows that there was not really much of a correlation. There's a little bit of a correlation, but not much between the directional movement of the S&P 500 and gold and silver. I think I used gold for simplistic purposes. But so then you had this tight correlation between the precious metals or the paper precious metals and the stock market. And it kind of feels like that correlation is starting to separate. And yesterday's a good example, because in the morning, everything was green, the metals and the stock market, and then the stock market headed south, maybe in anticipation or fear over what Powell might say today. But the precious metals sector still maintained their bid. So I remember at one point seeing the Dow down over 200, and then I looked at the Huey index, the Amex Gold Bugs index, and it had been up as high as, 5 or 6 points, and it was still up over 4 points, even though the Dow had sold off over 200 points at one point yesterday. So, and it hasn't been, yesterday's not an isolated case. It's been that way over the last few weeks, where you've had, maybe even longer than the last few weeks, where you've had days when, not every day, but days when the stock market's gone down, but we've had a bid in the precious metals sector. So, to me, along with just the way the charts look, we may be set up for a sustained move here finally.
Yeah, and in terms of the correlation, as we're recording again on Wednesday, we see the stock markets are all up. NASDAQ up about 3%, as the Wall Street interpretation of Powell's speech today, signaling smaller rate hikes ahead. And we know that does put some juice into the market. So certainly seeing that in gold and silver today. And do you have a forecast whether you're expecting 50 or 75 in a couple weeks, Dave?
I mean, Powell basically telegraphed to the world they're going to do 50 in December. So, and they've been, some of the less hawkish, although none of them are hawkish, because I don't even think this monetary policy can be termed hawkish. But it's some of the more MMT leaning FOMC members, I should say, have hinted over the last few weeks that 50 would be appropriate in December. So I think that's probably what we're going to get. I think that's why the market responded like it is today. But I'll tell you what's interesting. This is going to be short-lived, and the reason I say that is because the NASDAQ is up over 3%. So that tells you that the BTFD, FOMO, YOLO retail idiots and hedge fund algos are chasing this move. And they're going into the most speculative stocks. The Dow actually is starting to fade now. It was up well over 1%. But again, the NASDAQ's outperforming the Dow and the S&P by a factor of 2 to 3 times. So again, that just tells you how speculative the spirits are in the stock market still. And we're not going to have a stock market bottom until that's completely squashed.